Welcome back, folks, to Yankees Unloaded. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. He is Gary Sheffield Jr. Unfortunately, today the Yankees fell victim to the defeat of the Chicago Cubs, 2-1. We're going to get into it. We have a few things to talk about. Anthony Volpe. Before we do get into that, I just want to say, of course, we're not putting the whole loss on him, but we do want to talk about some things that need to be said. Gerrit Cole was great today. The bullpen was great. We're going to be talking about Clay Holmes and his new role. Looked really good. And we'll be talking about John Birdie getting called up, what that looks like, tomorrow, beyond, and so forth. So before we dive into that, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. And also, just want to let you guys know that you can check us out on audio. The link is in the description below. Special shout out to our new member, JT Roberts, who's a field level member. Appreciate you. As well as all the other field level members and all members, of course. But field level shout-outs here: Juan Cepeda, Kid from LI, Carlos Marrero, Jeff J, Ed W, Brian Fuchs, Ryan Hoffman, Rich Squires, Joshua Halleckman, Egyptian Magician, Nick Gomes, Jalen Sestero, and JT Roberts. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you, guys.
And Gary, let's get this thing rolling, because, I mean, this game was pretty brutal. It was 2 innings of scoring, not a lot of scoring, and then we didn't see any scoring. And it wasn't like yesterday when you had, offense didn't really show up the way you would have wanted, but it was fun watching that double-barreled action, with Nestor and, of course, Clark. But this game kind of just sucked. And so, you and I had our thoughts about some certain things, but, take us away on the Anthony Volpe thing, because you're the one that brought it up. And I thought, yeah, we should definitely run with it for this show.
Yeah, well, first of all, can you believe that there are actually people who would listen to a podcast after that game of baseball we just watched? That was
on NFL Sunday.
On NFL Sunday, you guys are a special type of fan. And
I know. We love you.
Fan base in the world. Obviously, hardly any of them are on Twitter, unfortunately. But what's so interesting about the storyline here for the Yankees, is that the Yankees simply cannot win a game after winning. For whatever reason, this team just cannot put away anyone. It doesn't matter who we play. We could be playing a team above 500, a team that's pretty serviceable in the Chicago Cubs, or we could be playing the White Sox. We still have yet to take care of business the way that we have to. But as far as this Volpe storyline goes, because I know a lot of people really aren't talking about it, we kind of manufactured it on our own. And that was really just by looking at the numbers and not necessarily staring down the barrel of analytics, because I know that's a huge bugaboo for a lot of people. They just say, well, if I can turn on the game and say this player is good, I don't necessarily care what the analytics say. But then if I look at a player and say, I hardly ever get production out of this guy, well, then maybe I can look at some analytics to back that. And personally, Jake, I feel like Anthony Volpe, just based on watching him, even when he gets his hits, they are not with authority. And I don't want to steal this idea from him, so I'm going to mention Michael Kay, and he was describing another player, actually. He was describing Alex Verdugo. Alex Verdugo is a player who currently is in place in left field for Jason Dominguez. Jason Dominguez is not being called up because of the existence of Alex Verdugo. Well, the Yankees tell you, well, he's hitting 354 his last 8 games. So that's the reasoning for Alex Verdugo being in left field. But you look at Anthony Volpe, and how does this come full circle? Anthony Volpe is hitting 252. That's above league average. But Jake, would it surprise you if I told you in his last 30 games of baseball, and I'm looking right down at his numbers here, his slugging percentage, his last 30 ball games, is 270. So those numbers suggest that he's not driving the ball at all. Now, you would assume, okay, he's not obviously hitting a lot of home runs. You'd be right. He hit 0 home runs his last 30 games. That's bad. Now, this is supposed to be a top prospect for the Yankees. He's supposed to be the best player coming out of the system in really since Aaron Judge. So here we sit with a player who's essentially a defensive specialist, and his bat hasn't caught up. And in a win now season, this matters. Am I calling Anthony Volpe a bust? No, not yet. But is it a lot to ask that I have to wait until year 3 to get any type of production offensively? I think so. I think that this has been a disappointment offensively. We have to be thrilled about the glove. His glove is 91st percentile. His range is 97th percentile. Very good on Baseball Savant. Arm is a little below average, but we can deal with that. Not a problem. As long as you're getting to the ball that you need to be getting to, you're making all the routine plays, we can live with it. You're going to make mistakes, but you got to hit the ball. When you're a top prospect, you've got to hit, and he's not hitting, Jake. So I at least want to introduce the idea and at least paying attention to the lack of production we're getting out of Anthony Volpe offensively, because I know it's not a story now that he's at the bottom of the lineup, but man, you got to get some level of production there.
Yeah, and I actually want to, basically add on to what you said, because I think this is important, because I've always been curious. I mean, I looked it up like early on this year because I was always curious how slugging is calculated. And just for people that don't know, you take essentially, so every piece is part of it. So if, first base, so you have a base hit, right? You add that. So people who get hits, it still goes into slugging. That's, the common misconception is it's all home runs. Like when you talk to people, they just assume slugging is home runs and not batting average, RBIs. That's not necessarily the case. Slugging is hits. So single base hits. Doubles, you get ×2. So there's a ×2 multiplier on doubles.
Right.
There's a ×3 multiplier on triples. There's a ×4 multiplier on home runs. Then you divide that by your at-bats and you have your slugging percentage. So when you think about that, it's honestly one of the greatest formulas ever created, because really what it's telling you is guys that just hit, right? They just hit. If that's all they do and they just get on base to first, that helps their on base. That helps their batting average. It doesn't tell me how much damage they do. Like, how are these guys? Are they coming away with doubles, triples, home runs? Are they actually powerful? Are they doing damage? And unfortunately, a single base hit isn't really doing much damage, especially when nobody's on.
It's much better though than no hit, because getting out really hurts your slugging percentage. It just does.
Absolutely.
And when you're slugging 270, that also means you're not getting very many hits, because I guarantee you guys, if you went and looked at Arias in San Diego, he doesn't slug either.
No.
His chase rate is the highest in Major League Baseball. He's number one, the highest. Okay, so you would assume this player, he's like today's Tony Gwynn. He's not as good as Tony Gwynn, but he's a player of that echelon. He's Tony Gwynn of today. Well, he's a guy that's really slapping singles out there, and yet his slugging percentage is a lot higher than 270 his last 30 games. Why? Because it's much better than rolling over to second base. Anthony Volpe right now, I don't know if you knew this, Jake, or if you have the stats in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know in the last 30 ball games? So we talked about Anthony Volpe doesn't have to slug. He doesn't have to hit homers. And I actually agree with that. I don't think Anthony Volpe should be necessarily judged on how many home runs he hits. I thought last year was a bit of fool's gold, hitting 20 homers, because he hit 205 to do it. So when you do that, it almost creates this perception that you're a power hitter and you need to play this Trey Turner style of brand of baseball. I disagree. I don't think that's the way Anthony Volpe should be playing at all. But you would assume as long as he's getting on base, then all's right with the world, right? Take a walk, hit a single, use your legs, get to second base into scoring position, and then we turn over the lineup to guys like Gleyber Torres, Juan Soto, and Aaron Judge. They can drive you in. Do you know, Jake, that he's walked seven times in his last 30 games? He's struck out 34. 34 strikeouts with 7 walks in your last 30 games. Do you know how bad that is? That is
not good.
Unbelievable how bad that is. I don't feel like I even have to explain that that's a bad thing, because a lot of people, when you associate somebody who's a more well-rounded player, which this player who's not a power hitter, he should be more well-rounded, right? He flattened out his swing this year. Technically, he should be having a lot easier of a time putting the ball in play and finding his way to first base via walk. These numbers right here is just a ghost town offensively.
No, it's not great at all. I want to bring up something here with Volpe, because on Baseball Reference, they actually have the RBI opportunities all itemized. I don't know if you knew this, which I think is kind of cool. So the most driven in by is Aaron Judge, 17, right? That's the most he's been driven in by is Aaron Judge.
Okay.
The most he's driven in is himself at 11. So the most times he's been driven in is 11 for him. Or most times he's driven in guys has been himself, is what I'm saying. And understand this. I know he was leadoff hitter, but it was a while ago. That was a long time ago. He hasn't been the leadoff hitter in a while. He also didn't start at leadoff. Exactly. So that's a little concerning, no? I mean, 11, then you have Aaron Judge. You've driven in 7 times. Gleyber Torres 7 times. Austin Wells 6. Trevino 4. Rizzo 4. Chisholm 3. And Cabrera 3.
Well, can I ask you, what's his strength offensively?
It's just contact.
I don't want to pick.
I don't
want to pick on him. What's the strength? Because contact doesn't mean anything. It technically is contact his strength. He's struck out 34 times his last 30 games. Is contact really
supposed to be? To me, when I look at Anthony Volpe, his strength is getting on base. Like when he's on base, it's his speed. I mean, that's really what it is. And that we were sold something that was better than this. He has 146 hits. I'm not trying to say he isn't, getting hits or anything like that. I mean, let's also give him credit for that.
Right.
But at the same time, when you have a game like this, and it really, is it unfair to a degree? Maybe, but we also aren't putting the whole game on him. The offense was terrible today. But let's be honest here, okay? We have been very going with the flow here on this channel in regards to the lineup. It's like every time we talk about the postseason lineup, we put Volpe in there. We don't even really say much, right? It's like bat him 8th or 9th. We've waved the white flag. He's not going to end up being the guy that we thought, at least this year, right? But what if he never ends up being that? And now you have to start to look that 2 years in a row where, this is an improvement, but I was expecting a bigger jump. And I thought he would have had a bigger jump because the lineup got better. Keep in mind, a lot of the time he was batting, and then you had Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. So he did get that opportunity in the leadoff spot. Gary, I think we've tried to be very fair with him, and understanding and giving him time. But at the same time, he's got to come through in these moments. And when you don't come through with a runner on second in a game where you desperately need something, you could say what you will. No one came through today. That's great, but we've seen DJ LeMahieu come through in those moments this year. We've seen Aaron Judge. We've seen Juan Soto. We've seen Austin Wells. We've seen Anthony Rizzo, right? We've seen plenty of guys come through. Jazz Chisholm. Duke Ellis should have scored, okay?
Yeah, we also never... let's be honest here. We never talk about Anthony Volpe on this show. Never.
Not really anymore.
The only thing we did was when he was playing really well, hitting in the 8th or 9th spot, and we asked for him to hit leadoff. Now, we wanted to see where this top prospect, untouchable player, what he would do at the leadoff position. What would happen if you had a guy with speed who can get on base? Because at the time, he was getting on base. So the idea that we're criticizing or bringing up the numbers from Anthony Volpe because we don't like him or we don't hope that he has a bright future. No, this isn't going to be a cheerleading fest. If you don't perform, I have to talk about it. Jake has to talk about it. So there are going to be people who hear this and they think, man, why is Gary and Jake picking on Anthony Volpe? The Yankees had 6 hits. Gleyber Torres is the one who made the error and cost Gerrit Cole 2 unearned runs. We should have won this game. But that doesn't excuse the performance that we're bringing up. So yes, you can absolutely you can have the idea and the opinion that Gleyber Torres should have made a play, but does that play being made suddenly excuse striking out 30 some times in your last 30 games and walking in the single digits? I mean, that's absurd. So I guess where I'm at, Jake, is that we need to start asking the question, and you've actually started to introduce it yourself, is that next year, is it acceptable for a 260 hitter with less than 20 homers to play good defense at short, and then we call this a success? Is this a success? In my opinion, this is 2 seasons in a row where I've been left underwhelmed. I felt underwhelmed offensively. And I actually mentioned to you before we actually hit the record button today that I would much rather personally in a top prospect have a guy who's hitting well, but he's doing the opposite of what Volpe's doing. Hit well, and then we work on the glove, right? I can work on the glove or find a place for you on defense. But what if you're a really good defender as a top prospect and we can't figure out what to do with your bat in year 3 or perhaps year 4? Well, that's a huge issue. You can't have a contender and your top prospect isn't hitting. So I don't know, Jake. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I've already said on this show, I prioritize offense over defense. I'm not saying defense doesn't matter because I've gotten on Aaron Judge for his defense. I've gotten on Juan Soto. I just don't. My thing is, it's kind of how they've treated their prospects in the past. Like, Mateo, for instance, never got a shot, right? He was at one point, he was their number 1 prospect and he never got a shot. And you trade him away. You don't even see what he's about. Honestly, Mateo and Volpe are kind of similar in a sense. Volpe's a way better fielder, but
absolutely,
that whole thing. And then you look at, in the past, and it's like, yeah, they had Judge, but now you have, this is what I'll say. This is how I really want to get this point across. You have Jason Dominguez sitting there, and he, in my opinion, and I think you ask anybody, he felt like a way bigger deal as a prospect than Anthony Volpe. Anthony Volpe was somebody that got a lot of steam towards the end of his run in AAA and in AA. And I mean, by all means, he was hitting really well and everything. But at one point, Oswald Peraza was hitting better than him. And Peraza, there was actually like chatter that Peraza might take over short and Volpe moves to third or what have you, or second.
There were conversations for that to happen.
Yeah. And so I guess really my thing here is this organization had a guy who they signed. Everybody was calling him the Martian, comparing him to Mickey Mantle. And he isn't in the major leagues today. But Anthony Volpe, it's like you even bring up the idea of benching him, and Boone went off the handle on Talking Yanks.
So it was the worst idea he'd ever heard.
Yeah. So I guess like my thing is they've obsessed over this kid. They've defended him every which way. And it's almost like they're trying to defend him so much that he doesn't even like, they don't even want him to hear the criticism and get better based on it. Like it almost just seems like they've never once brought up the offense or anything. He's saying 252, right? Like what this is totally fine. In my opinion, if you gave Anthony Volpe stats and you transfer them to Vivas, Durbin, Peraza, any of those guys in the minor leagues, totally fine. The fact that he was the number 1 guy in their farm system, he moved all the way up to top 5 in the MLB top 100. And the fact that he was in the same draft, because I don't want to hear, well, there's nothing you could do. That already happened. You can't keep bringing that up. Yes, I can. He was in the same draft as Gunnar Henderson. So he, whether he likes it or not, will always be compared to Gunnar Henderson. And he's not even half of Gunnar Henderson. So,
well, can I actually prove something to you though?
Yeah,
I actually have something to prove.
Mm-hmm.
You know how when you look at Anthony Volpe and you mention his hits, right? You mention his batting average, and his batting average is 254, I believe. It's actually 252. Went down today. He went over 3 with 3 strikeouts, but he's hitting 252, right? League average is 244. So the perception is this is a slightly above average bat. Well, here's where I disagree. And this, again, I'm poaching the idea from Michael Kay describing other players. If you don't slug at all with that 252, are you really hitting league average? Because league average offensively in today's game, the way they describe baseball today, is home run, strikeout, or walk. So that 244 that you guys are talking about, it's not 244 with slap singles and stolen bases. No, the 244 that they're describing as league average in baseball today is with league average home runs as well. I guarantee you Anthony Volpe's ops isn't close to league average. I guarantee it. I don't even have to look. Actually, I'll look just for the sake of not being lazy on this show. His ops is 680. Statistically, that is more than 25 points below league average. So he's not slugging the baseball. So this 252 you're seeing is below average baseball. That's my point. So this is a disappointment, I think, objectively speaking. And by the way, on the story of if you would rather have a bat or a glove, this is where I ask you the question. Do you remember when Yes Network came out and said, hey, is Alex Verdugo's glove, is that the reason that he's in left field in place of Jason Dominguez? Is that the worry? Is it Jason Dominguez's defense? Is that the problem here? Because we know it's not the bat. And you know what they said? Jason Dominguez's glove is really good, but so is Alex Verdugo's. But what if it wasn't? What if Jason Dominguez was a below average defensive player? Would you guys still want Jason Dominguez up in the big leagues? You sure would, wouldn't you?
Yes,
because the bat is the most important thing you can have, especially at certain positions. So that's where I'm at with this. I feel like the priority should have always been the bat. How Anthony Volpe progressed into this season, I thought this year he's had plenty of opportunity. He's hit everywhere in the order. He's hit 9th, 8th, 7th, leadoff. They'll put him anywhere. The only thing they won't put him is on the bench. I'm not clamoring for him to be on the bench. I think it's too late now. But, man, I guess my conclusion here is that Anthony Volpe is at least worth a conversation of he's not this surefire guy that we pinned him to be. He's got to go earn it.
Well, I think Anthony Volpe is going through something. I would say I'm going to compare him to a player on the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay. Remember Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
Yes.
So he was a first-round draft pick. And people thought, because Andy Reid coached Brian Westbrook, as you know, you're an Eagles fan.
Yes.
Andy Reid coached Brian Westbrook in Philadelphia. And he had kind of that 5'8", 200-pound stature. He was actually, full disclosure, one of my favorite running backs ever. Loved watching him. But
can't blame you.
They compared him to Westbrook. And his first game, he started off he had over 100 yards in the opening game of the year. And then he really hasn't been that great. Now, there's a 7th rounder that has taken over in Isaiah Pacheco. And I feel like that's potentially kind of the road Volpe is going to go down, is that I think somebody is going to emerge that they just can't even hold back. If he doesn't get his act together, I don't care how good he is at short, eventually at some point, whether it's a George Lombard Jr. or, it's Arias or maybe they even give, Peraza a shot. But at some point or another, I think it's definitely fair if Peraza is no longer ranked as a prospect, right? No longer ranked, not in the top 30. Then I think it's fair to no longer call Anthony Volpe a top prospect, a franchise player, a potential franchise player. I'm just going to let him do his thing. And I'm not going to put any expectations on it because I hate to be doom and gloom like that, but we've seen him now the last 365 days. He's hitting 244, a 661 OPS, 369 slugging, on base percentage is 291. He's got 12 homers. I mean, he really just has not been what we were expecting. And that's disappointing because I thought he'd be like a 280 guy, would, steal a lot of bases. He's only stolen 28 in 365 days.
The crazy part is stealing 28 bases is good.
Yeah.
And you know this, but it's with the context that you're hitting, that you need to hit, right? You can't just steal 28 bases. No one's a top prospect in baseball. Billy Hamilton wasn't the number 1 overall prospect in baseball. He was the fastest guy in the league. There's a reason for that. Okay. So he can go steal 40 bags all you want, but what makes you a top prospect is your ability to field the ball in combination with hitting. And Anthony Volpe's got one side of the ticket right now. And you're not this top guy if you can't hit. I'm sorry. Major League Baseball, if you don't hit, you're not that valuable. You might have a spot in Major League Baseball. You know who's had a spot in Major League Baseball for a decade? Kevin Kiermaier. Dude can't hit a lick. Not a lick. Can't hit.
Field, though, so
he can sure as hell field the baseball, and he's got a cannon, right? He's got both things. So awesome. But that's not going to be the number 1 overall prospect. You're not going to get Kevin Kiermaier as your number 1 guy, put him in center field and be like, yeah, he's a Gold Glover, but he's hitting 212. Kevin Kiermaier knows he's a role player. This is a role player that we have on our hands. And Could it turn around? Absolutely. But Jake, I'm with you. I don't think this idea, I don't turn on Yankees games in 2025 opening day and say, oh yeah, I expect Volpe to hit 290 and hit 22 homers. I don't expect that. My expectation is something far below it. And like you said, if somebody else emerges, maybe not a prospect, I don't really think there's anyone in the Yankees system that I have penciled to take his place. I really don't. But if the Yankees find themselves in an opportunistic situation where there's somebody out there in the free agency market or via trade at shortstop that's really a good fit for the Yankees, whether it be athletically or just with a bat period, you think I'm going to block that player because of Anthony Volpe's presence? No, you can leave Volpe at shortstop to be a fielder, but am I going to lock that position away for the next 2 decades over what I'm watching? Absolutely not.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like doing this show has given me more clarity, because I used to just be, okay, one size fits all on the batting average. It's really not at all. And in addition to that, it's not just that slugging and on base matter, but in addition to that, like obviously you can have OPS and that's great, but in addition to that, splits matter. Like how good are you in 28 games? Because your batting average being 252, you're a 242 hitter since July 2nd. That's what Anthony Volpe is. If you take away his blistering hot start at the beginning of the year, because this is what he's been for 3 months, this is what Anthony Volpe is, a 5 home run guy. The Yankees are 28-28 in the last 56 games with him. He has 53 hits, so almost a hit per game. Not bad. That's what he pretty much is. He's got 13 doubles. He's got 5 home runs, 26 RBIs, 51 strikeouts, so almost a strikeout per game, and 11 stolen bases. And so my thing is 11 stolen bases in 56 games. I mean, that might be good for some guys, but I expected more. I thought Volpe could be at least a 20-20 guy, maybe 30-30. You know, the power seems gone. They were talking about him like he had 30-30 upside. I feel like we were just sold something that wasn't actually, maybe I don't even fault Anthony Volpe. The way we were sold him coming out of, the minor leagues was that he's going to be potentially a 30-30 bat.
Well, the perception was that he hit 20 home runs his rookie year. He's not going to hit 200 in year 2, which was true. But what they didn't tell you is by flattening out his swing, which allowed his batting average to go from 200 to 252, that essentially eliminated the power game. So now he's a 250 hitter. He might look above average offensively, but his power is nowhere to be seen. That doesn't mean we can't turn on a game tomorrow and he cannot hit a home run. No, he can, but he doesn't go to the plate and you say, oh, I want Volpe to go deep here. This is a good situation. Bases loaded, nobody outs, and Volpe walks up to the plate. I don't even know if my brain registers that a grand slam can be hit there. I don't even think it does. But when you see Aaron Judge or Wells or Stanton come up, even Jazz Chisholm, you expect, like, some of those guys are contact bats, but they can leave the yard in a moment's notice. I mean, their numbers suggest it. So, yeah, is there anything good that happened in today's game? I guess Gerrit Cole. Do you want to talk about Gerrit Cole?
I do. Real quick, though. 2021, he had 27 home runs. He had 294, had over 1,000 OPS. That was in high A and low A ball. And then 2022 in AAA and AA, which led him to being a starter in 2023, he had 21 home runs. He hit 249 with a 342 on base percentage, 460 slugging, 802 OPS. Now, I guess really he's essentially what he was in 2022, just weighted at the level of the MLB, in my opinion. Because that on base, all that stuff is going to drop. So, but I guess this is really my point. He was 21 years old. Jason Dominguez is 21. Like, Jason Dominguez is crushing it in the minors. Yeah. Anthony Volpe really had his moments, but I wouldn't say he was ever crushing it outside of Tampa, which is single A, where he hit 302. Like, after that, I mean, OPS 802, 718, 820, 666, and 684. I just think it's definitely fair to have that discussion. But yeah, we got the rest of the show to do. This is not the Anthony Volpe show.
Gerrit Cole was very good today. Let's not gloss over the fact He
No,
had
he was
2
very good.
unearned runs, a
Mhm.
play from Gleyber Torres, which is debatable. I actually just saw the play. I missed it. I don't know how. But anyway, I saw the play. Some people would argue that play should be made. Other people will say, well, that's Gleyber Torres. He leads the league in errors. Why would you expect him to make that play? Regardless, Jake, this is the Gerrit Cole we needed to see. And that's what matters.
Absolutely.
It's very clear between the Yankees and Orioles. Nobody is physically, not just mentally, right? Not just like what they have going on in the locker room and the drive of these two teams. No, roster wise, the Baltimore Orioles and the New York Yankees do not have the personnel to just run away now with the division. It's now too late. The time to run away with the division was 2 months ago when the Orioles had lost about 15 of their last 18 games. The Yankees should have run away with the division at that point, right? They were plenty healthy. They just didn't do it. We lost a couple guys in a rotation. The Yankees should have had plenty of firepower to go do that. They didn't do it. So here we stand, and we need to see a version of Gerrit Cole that resembles the real Gerrit Cole, somebody with command, somebody who has the physical capabilities to go deeper into a game. And that play not being made by Gleyber obviously kind of ended his outing. But let's be clear. If we get this version of Gerrit Cole, we can win game 1 of any playoff series that we play. It's just now up for the offense to show up. And unfortunately today against Jameson Taillon, he's been pitching pretty well of late. He just completely shut us down. That backdoor cutter it was a good pitch today. It was working for him. And then plus the home plate umpire was giving both pitchers the corners. And when that happens, I guess both pitchers can control the game.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think when it comes to Gerrit Cole, he's revved up. He's ready for October. That's all I really need to know. I need wins, and he gave him a chance at a win, but
Yep.
He's now got his ERA down to 3.36. The way he started, that is impressive. He's already back to being the ace. He is the ace. Today was his birthday. Happy birthday to him. Hate that
Is he 32?
32? Gerrit Cole?
Yeah, I think
34.
So. He's 34?
Yep.
Oh boy.
That's why I was saying
that's not what I wanted to hear.
Happy birthday to him, but like him going up another age,
Boy.
like not exactly loving that. Yeah, he's 34.
But that's baseball, Jake. Players get old fast. By the time you get a big free agent like Gerrit Cole, he's been here for a few years now. It's not time to look at his 9 or 10-year contract that you gave him and say, well, what's he going to look like at 36? We're not supposed to go win a World Series when Gerrit Cole's 36. He's not supposed to be the ace when he's 37. He's supposed to be the ace now. And the Yankees are supposed to, they describe this as a win now season. He's supposed to go pitch the biggest games of the year right now. And that's why there's such a huge emphasis. Everyone says, what's the complaints? Yankees Unloaded, all these different podcasts. Why are you guys riding down our back? There's still, we can win a World Series this year. There's always next year. No, when your personnel is 34 and Giancarlo Stanton is 35, 36, and you've got all these players, right? Aaron Judge getting up there in age, like he's not getting any younger. The Yankees have to go out there and win now. And you just telling me he turned 34, I guess it makes a lot of sense since I'm 30. But man, I mean, you're absolutely right. If you look at Gerrit Cole's last few outings, like obviously that start he had in Washington was a bit demoralizing, but he pitched really well against Cleveland the start before that. Gerrit Cole's pitched pretty well. He has. And also something we cannot gloss over before I hand it back over to you. Gerrit Cole is missing bats. His last 3 starts, 7 Ks, 9, and 7 Ks. That's what we're looking for, in 1 walk apiece in all 3. So that's what you're looking for. You're looking for someone with command that can miss a bat. It's something that we all expected to get at the deadline, whether it be in the starting rotation or in the bullpen. We obviously didn't do that with Leiter and De Los Meatballs. But this right here is a pitcher who dominates. And if that happens, the Yankees have the second best offense in Major League Baseball. There aren't any great teams out in baseball. We have a chance.
Yeah. And I want to add on to that. Gerrit Cole had 10 swing and misses today. Taillon had 11, by the way.
Wow.
Taillon's really turned himself around. I can definitely see why the Yankees were interested in getting him at the deadline. The Cubs were also not interested in moving him. They were asking for the farm. So obviously you weren't going to do that, but
no.
I'll say this. I'm glad to get out of Chicago. I could not wait to get out of Chicago. Love Wrigley Field. I've been there before. Watched Matt Garza throw a ball into the stands and blow his perfect game. But throwing to first, he threw it like into the freaking side of the stands. It's like, you can't even do that now because the net is there.
True. That is logistically true. We have Rodon on the mound tomorrow, by the way.
That's good. The reason why I want to get out of the Chicago is because top exit velocity today, Gary, 109.6, 107, 102.7, 102.6, 101.7. None were home runs. None were even close except for the 101.7 one with Austin Wells.
Can we get a dome out in Chicago?
I mean, the industrial fan, I don't know, wind, whatever it was, I would assume it's the Windy City. It was infuriating. And I normally don't get like annoyed not seeing home runs, but just wicked infuriating. I mean, you said yesterday Stanton hit that one that it's like, how was that not a home run?
He pimped it. It was caught.
So Gary, I'll add this. 16 MLB games were played on September 7th yesterday. Stanton had the hardest hit ball of the entire
No.
113.4 miles per hour, according to Savant.
Well, go back and watch it. It might be very difficult to go find that play, but if you guys can get a hold of it, Giancarlo Stanton made contact with the pitch yesterday and pimped it. He thought this ball was going 30 rows deep, and rightfully so. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. And let's be clear, it was fair. It was probably technically an advantage for the Cubs. They're not necessarily a power hitting team in comparison to us.
Yeah.
So us having these conditions was always going to affect us in a certain way. And by the way, I'm not that upset about it, maybe as much as you are, because in my opinion, come October, postseason baseball is going to be played this way. It's going to be freezing cold. Home runs can still be hit in the cold. No question about it.
Yeah.
But you've got to go win games. Very similar to how we won yesterday's game, where you have Aaron Judge with a double steal of Jazz Chisholm right behind him at second base. You're going to win games like that in October. Not all of them, but there are going to be a lot of games that you win where you don't just hit a ball 112 and then have expectation it goes out. So I kind of like that we got tested in this way. I don't like the results, but it at least kind of goes to show that we're not postseason ready and we still have a lot to prove.
Yeah, I just looked at the game before that in Chicago Friday. Stanton 113 came in second for top exit velocity. So he can't wait to get out of Chicago. He's like, I had 2 home runs at Yankee Stadium. I had 2 home runs anywhere, pretty much. The wind just blowing right against the ball. But yeah, it was a great game for Cole. He's in, like I said, he is in October mode. That's a great thing. Tomorrow is Rodon. Rodon is coming off a huge outing, right? Like, I mean, he had like 11 strikeouts and the Yankees blew it.
Oh, we crapped down our leg in that start. That was actually one of the worst losses all year, and we say that quite a bit, but it was. When you have your 2, well, I guess Rodon's probably
this is one of the better teams the Yankees have on the schedule the rest of the way. Kansas City is, I mean, that's a big deal going up against Brady Singer, who's just notoriously dominated the Yankees, and Carlos Rodon coming off maybe his best start of the season, one of it. So, I mean, yeah,
they're off 4 wins in a row. So obviously Kansas City's playing good baseball. But you know what? Who gives a rip who we're playing? Who cares? Last time we went and played the Chicago White Sox, we blew that, right? We went and played the Angels. We blew the hell out of that series. So does it really matter who we're playing? The Yankees probably play better against better teams anyway. For whatever reason, they're just not ready to play. So if we're playing Kansas City, they're off a 4-game win streak. Singer pitches well against the Yankees. I don't care. Go out there for a team that says they want to win a title. These are the teams that you very clearly need to go beat. So if you're going to see this team in the wild card, I mean, this is a 79-65 Kansas City team. Well, then go out and show it to us. Go prove it.
And you're back at Yankee Stadium. So
no excuse.
Rodon can have Yankees fans travel well, but you'll know that you have your Yankees fans there. Right. Yankees lead the series for the year 3-1. And yeah, maybe we'll see John Birdie in the lineup because he's getting called up tomorrow. Excited about that.
John Birdie in left field.
We're all hoping, right? Because
Should have been Dominguez. Oh, by the way, do you have a movie for us? I don't know if I told you before, but it's actually your responsibility to come up with a movie.
So it's now, I have to come up with a bad movie.
You don't have to do a bad movie. If there's something on your chest where you really want to put our audience on, then you can absolutely do that.
All right, let me think of that about that real quick. While I'm doing that, Clay Holmes was great today in the 8th inning.
Oh yeah, which you actually brought up is how well he pitches in the 8th inning. Just so happens
the splits,
and he was great. Yeah, the splits. So if somebody's good in the 8th inning, but they haven't necessarily proven themselves, at least in the long term at this point, well, why pitch them in the situation that they predominantly don't pitch well in? Pitch them when they pitch well. That's it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to see a guy pitch well in the 8th and now assume he's going to pitch again well in the 9th inning. Let's just make the assumption if Clay Holmes pitches the 8th inning and he continues to do that well, we can just leave him in the 8th inning. And now we just have a guy who pitches well in the 8th inning. Like, what's wrong with that?
Yeah, I'm totally with you. And, Jake Cousins obviously pitched well too. So that was a great sign. Yeah, so I'm going to go with a bad movie that I don't recommend. I'm a big horror fan. People said that this was a great horror movie. I didn't see it. Infinity Pool. Okay. I'm a big fan of, I think Alexander Skarsgård, great actor. Mia Goth, great actress. But Infinity Pool was weird. It creeped me out, but not in a way that like, okay, this is a horror movie. It just was really annoying, honestly, and unsettling. Cause I think a lot of the issue I had with this movie was it was really a commentary. And I hate commentaries. Absolutely hate commentaries. Just create a plot based on the plot. Don't give me messaging and all that. I'm so over it.
Interesting. Because I just tried to Google it. I've actually never heard of the movie Infinity Pool. And all I'm seeing on Instagram, or not Instagram, on images, is a bunch of pictures of people in Dubai in infinity pools. So this is not painting the picture that I thought.
I wasn't sure where you were going with that. I was like, because I mean, the cover of the movie, it's like bloody water that they're like.
Yeah, I see that. It's just two jamokes floating in the water. Yeah, I see it. Yeah. Oh, 2023 film. Okay. So I will not be seeing this. Obviously, I don't do very well with scary movies.
I wouldn't even call it, but look, this is why you can't trust the tomato meter or whatever. The tomato meter would have you believe that it's 87%. Critics loved it because you know why? Critics obsess over social commentaries. They obsess over them. They'll be like, oh, it's very artsy. Ooh, and us, the people that are actually consuming this content are like, nope, 52%. And honestly, that's higher than it should have been.
Okay. Well, it says horror movie and sci-fi. I see enough horror films watching Anthony Volpe hit the last 30 games. So yeah, I will not be doing any more of it.
It's definitely not, I wouldn't call it a horror movie. I think they just absolutely missed the mark on it because they tried to make it like scary and all that. And you end up just really confused. And at the end, you realize, oh, it's really just a social commentary. And it's just, I don't like commentaries. Just give me a plot. Give me an actual plot. Don't be like, oh yeah, this is what it's about, this broader implication. No, it's dumb.
Nope.
Basically, it was about not having much of a conscience.
Yeah, I won't be seeing it.
Yeah. So it was a bunch of people who did like really bad things. They had no conscience of doing it. And then they could just essentially do it again and do it again and do it again. And they would just basically strip off the skin of themselves and just I'm explaining in a way that's not giving it away because in case anyone,
you don't need to worry about not giving it away. No one's going to see it.
Yeah. It just wasn't good. And Mia Goth is great. She's one of the best horror actresses out there. She's in Maxine, X, the other one, I forget the other one, but they're in that trilogy series. You've probably seen it advertised. No?
Nope. No.
Okay. Well,
no, I'm not even in the theater. No, I don't see any scary movies. The scariest movie I've seen is like Mad Max. and it's not even a scary movie. It's an adventure. It's like an adventure.
So you're not
action
seeing
thing.
Long Legs?
No.
What about Terrifier?
I won't be seeing any of it. I promise you. I will see no scary movie. That's all I'm saying. No.
I hear you. Well, that's gonna do it. So appreciate you guys. Throw Infinity Pool in the comments section if you made it this far. If you made it this far, I mean, we give you a lot of credit because, you know, it's a busy day. The NFL season just started, and we're very big NFL fans. We both have our own NFL stuff. So yeah, we really appreciate it. Again, throw Infinity Pool in the comment section below, and be sure to like, subscribe. And if you want to become a member and have access to mailbags, since our mailbag has been tumbleweeds and what have you, it's been pretty quiet. If you want to get in on that, by all means, you could sign up to become a member, field level. And yeah,
like this video.